Ever feel like your sales stories are not hitting the mark? They're rambling on a little bit much, and maybe they're even a little bit boring. Mike Weinberg shows us a quick story framework in his book, Sales Truth. Welcome to the Bite Size Sales Podcast, where we believe that sales is the most important team in a B2B company, that the sales team deserves great sales skills training but usually doesn't get it, and that taking bite-sized steps each day to get better at your craft is the best way to improve results. I am your host, Andrew Monahan, and I'm using my experiences in B2B sales to bring you simple, actionable ideas every day to help you get better. A story is one of the great communication tools that we as humans have. Stories go back generations, centuries, millennia. And if you look at some of the things that we know about, from centuries and centuries and centuries ago, it tends to be from stories that were passed down from generation to generation, era to era. And they're stories told well really drag you in. They capture you. They capture your attention for potentially minutes, if not hours. And they're a very effective way to communicate ideas and things to people. And yet somehow, when it comes to stories in the business world, and especially, I hate to say it, in the sales world, they end up being a little bit boring, rambling, not concise, not very effective, things like that. I think we've all kind of experienced that from hearing other people's stories, or even, if we're honest, about some of our own. So let's, as salespeople, let's take the lead in this. Let's try and make this something that where it's a strength of ours, as opposed to one that's potentially a weakness. And Mike Weinberg, in his book, Sales Truth, gives us a simple structure to work with. Let me read that to you right now. Salespeople must be armed with a range of case studies that cover the gamut of their company's offerings and the types of situations where those offerings apply. And let's not get wigged out by the term case studies. That is just a fancy way of saying customer stories. It shouldn't take an act of Congress to create a handful of one-page success stories and teach them to the sales team. Frankly, I don't know how in the world a company could expect salespeople to succeed, especially newer salespeople, if they're not able to easily, quickly, and conversationally comfortably share examples of how their company has helped customers in similar situations. Those are table stakes if there's any hope of succeeding. A solid, usable case study has three very simple components: the customer's situation when we found them, what we did, and the outcome. It doesn't get much simpler. And that is why I go nuts when large bureaucratic organizations make it seem like it's too hard to create case studies for the sales team. So that's read straight from Sales Truth by Mike Weinberg. And I would go even a little bit further. What I've seen is organizations, some that struggle to produce case studies. It has to go through, how many levels of approval, and is it on the right brand? Is it on topic? And is it using the right terminology? And it, all kind of interest gets edited out of the whole thing. The second thing I've seen as well is long rambling case studies, right? The people that create these case studies must get paid by the word or the page, because what you end up with is a 3-page list of things and story, and they've crammed as many words on these 3 pages as they possibly can, and then somehow expect the sales team to then make sense of it. All right, it's almost like we're going to throw as much at you as we can and let you figure out how to tell this story. To me, that seems like kind of a weird way of doing it, right? Two audiences for a story, if they're going to read it, one is the customer, that should be one way. And then secondly, there should be a version for the sales team that says, look, here's a 2-minute way to tell this customer story using maybe Mike Weinberg's framework here. I remember I joined one company, and they didn't have a library of customer stories, and they were about to go through a huge hiring spree for reps. So what I did is I found out in my 3rd or 4th week I was there, they had their customer conference. And a bunch of the sales reps were going to be there. So actually, rather than go and interview the customers, what I did was I interviewed on video all the top sales reps that were there. And I simply said to them, I want you to tell your customer stories and I want you to do it in less than 2 minutes. And I want you to use this framework, which is actually pretty similar to Mike Weinberg's framework here. And I ended up with 19 different customer stories on video, each less than 2 minutes. And then as we brought these new hires in, they didn't have the luxury of having their own customers obviously coming in, right? But they were able to beg, borrow, and steal from the library that we created in these videos. And they were just so thankful, right? They were just so thankful they had something that was more interesting to talk about rather than ourselves, but actually about our customers. And they were armed and ready to go out there in the field. So these stories are super, super powerful. And what I've seen is when we leave it up to people to figure out from that 3-page case study I talked about what to say, then the story rambles all around, right? And what you can do is if you're in a situation where you have those long kind of rambling case studies, use Mike Weinberg's framework here to create your version of that story, be able to articulate and tell it in less than 2 minutes and practice it. So when you go out there, it's very effective, it's to the point, and it's impactful. If you like this episode, please share it wide and far. Spread the word. I get energy from seeing people download and use this content, so please just take 20 seconds to share it with anyone you think would like it too. This episode is sponsored by Unstoppable.do. Most sales teams are not trained effectively in the skills and mindset they deserve, and these are the most important people in the company. It's no wonder that only about 50% of reps make quota every year. Unstoppable is a service that helps sellers and leaders get great at the skills and mindset they need without taking time out of the field. It exists because if the sales team has the right skills and mindset, they thrive, they are confident, and they perform much better. Find out more and even get a free sales book at bitesizesales.com. And now to wrap up, as Eric Apple, VP of Sales at Symantec, may or may not have once said, training without implementation is just entertainment, and pretty poor entertainment when Monahan does it. So make sure you take action on what you learn and keep getting better every day. This world does not need more sales BS, so don't create any more. Be great at the fundamentals, be honest, be real, be yourself, just do not BS. And finally, I'm signing off as the great Joe Sexton would by saying, gone to sell.